You may hear about the Missouri Senate often, but do you ever wonder what's really going on behind the scenes? Join Senate Majority Leader Cindy O'Laughlin as she provides an honest, first-hand view of Missouri politics. Thank you for tuning in to Hard Truth with Cindy O'Laughlin.
Good afternoon. I'm Cindy O'Laughlin, Senator of the 18th District here in Missouri. Each week I come to you with Hard Truth with Cindy O'Laughlin, a podcast that covers the activities going on in the Senate. Our Senate calendar is coming down toward the end, so as is often the case, we have big issues to be considered. One of those is the budget. The budget process is a long process. There are several senators on the committee, and they go through every department. Department heads and supporting staff come in and explain what the expenditures are, what they're trying to accomplish, how they plan to go about it. So it's the kind of thing that takes a lot of hours, a lot of time. Our senators that are on the committee have to spend a lot of time deciding, all right, is this a worthwhile expenditure or not? I have with me today Senator Tony Luetkemeyer. He is the Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee. Tony, glad to have you on.
Cindy, always great to be here.
And I wanted him to maybe give you some idea, maybe an overview of how the Appropriations Committee functions and give you some of the highlights. So, Senator Luetkemeyer, it's all yours. Explain to us all about appropriations.
Absolutely. Well, the Appropriations Committee is the largest committee in the Senate. We have 13 members, so roughly a third of the Senate is on the committee, and so it's a very well represented committee. People with different political backgrounds, people from different parts of the state, and so a lot of different perspectives get brought to bear whenever we're having committee hearings. The way the process really works is we start at the very beginning of session while the House is still working on the budget. And we hear from every executive department, every director that reports to the governor. They present their budget to the committee and ask for different things that they want for their departments. And so then we'll hear from other interested groups that have things that they want to see in the budget. And then usually, once we get back from legislative spring break around March or April, we then get the budget bills over from the House. The Senate then goes through what we call the markup process, which is where we go literally line by line through the state's roughly $40 billion budget, and every single item that's in the budget gets scrutinized by the committee. And then we vote out a budget, and then once we do that, it goes to the full Senate floor for debate.
So we plan to go to the budget next week, and I wanted to kind of address some of the things that we hear about out in the public. Mm-hmm. One being that our budget has almost doubled in the last couple of years. Can you explain to the audience why that is?
So there's a couple of different factors that really drive that. One, tax revenue is actually up. So we're collecting more taxes, whether it's sales taxes or income taxes. For the last few years, those have been up. Even after COVID, which I think is really a testament to how strong the Missouri economy is. We came out of COVID a lot better than a lot of Democratic states did. The second reason is we've received a historic amount of federal dollars. So whether it's ARPA money or other money that we received after the COVID-19 pandemic from Congress, we have those budget dollars now that are part of the state budget. So we have to appropriate that money as well.
So when you're considering, what is an appropriate expenditure for Missouri, and you have these extra dollars, do you look at, is this a continuing expense? Is this a new item? How do you go about making that decision?
Well, the approach that the Appropriations Committee has taken for the last several years, especially with these one-time federal dollars, and that's important, it's one-time money, it's not going to be ongoing from Congress, is we've really focused on projects that are one-time projects that require maybe a larger sum of money. So maybe it's the building of a new construction project on a college campus, or maybe it's in addition to an existing Missouri highway or some infrastructure upgrades, things that are going to last for a long time but require a lot of capital up front, but they don't have ongoing costs, as opposed to a line item in the budget that would be for, let's say, schools, which you would expect to see from year to year. We've really tried to stay away from a lot of those ongoing obligations and really focus on one-time projects with that money.
And so I think it's important for Missouri citizens to realize we're not spending a lot of additional money on something that we in a couple of years are going to have to say, we don't have the money to continue that. You've looked at one-time projects, In my own district, I had, for instance, a nursing home that needed to replace a sewer line that was built like in the 70s, and that's $1 million expenditure. So that's one of the things that I asked for. And I know that people hear all different kinds of things about what the budget is covering, but really I think that we have responsibly tried to contain the spending to one-time things that we normally would not be able to fund.
Yeah, and we've done all this while balancing a budget. There's no deficit spending that occurs in Missouri, and at the same time, without raising taxes. And actually, during that entire time, we've actually cut taxes consistently on Missouri families and still been able to live within our means and produce a balanced budget.
So I know that there can be sometimes some kind of controversial things that we talk about. One of those has been the Planned Parenthood amendment. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've put this language in the budget for several years, and what it basically says is we're not going to use taxpayer dollars to subsidize abortion providers in the state of Missouri. I think that's something that's widely accepted by most voters in the state of Missouri. So we had a case that came down from the Missouri Supreme Court last year that said that you cannot legislate through the budget, and they deemed that to be legislating through the budget when we put that language in. And so what we did is we came back this year, we passed a standalone bill through both the House and the Senate. It went back over to the House that just defunds Planned Parenthood. And that bill, by all accounts, is going to get signed into law by the governor. And so the good thing is we now know that that's just going to be statute going forward, and we don't have to worry about that language in the budget going forward.
And so a big part of our budget is spent on Medicaid, and this is to help lower income people, people in various stages of life, many of whom are in the nursing home, maybe they're in the hospital. We are getting ready next week to renew the FRA, and that is something that has created some degree of controversy. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the FRA is a voluntary tax that's actually paid by hospitals, and it accounts for a little over $4 billion of the state budget, and it helps fund a significant portion of our Medicaid program. So without the FRA, we would have about a $4 billion hole in the state budget, which would mean cuts to higher education, K through 12 education, and other essential government programs.
So we've had a few people who have suggested, well, we just won't renew the FRA. And I think that is silly. I think that if you're a responsible legislator, you say to yourself, all right, maybe I would like to do this a little bit differently, but I need to come up with a plan that assures people that we understand what it was paying for. Do we want to continue with that? If we're going to change the funding mechanism, we need to have a plan. We don't just come in and say, oh, we don't really like that, so we'll just stop doing that. And I just want to make the point that it's really imperative that we renew that tax. I think we will go to it Tuesday next week, and we will get it done. And, it's helping to pay for some of the most vulnerable people in our state. In my district, I have several nursing homes, many of which are really in financial difficulty. And so to not renew that tax is just leaving citizens with no other option. I appreciate the time you spent on the budget. The last thing I'll ask you is, we added something this year about illegal immigrants because this is a hot topic. Our social safety net, it's strained, just like everyone else's. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so we heard some news last week coming out of Kansas City that the mayor of Kansas City was proposing taking in an untold number of immigrants from both New York City and from Denver into Kansas City. The plans are still in the works as to what exactly he's wanting to do. But the concern is that he was going to turn Kansas City into a sanctuary city. And as you mentioned, we've already got a strain on resources in the state. And so knowing that there would likely be these scarce government resources going to people who are unlawfully in our country, we wanted to put something in the budget to protect those Missouri tax dollars. And so what we did is we put an amendment in during the committee process that said any municipality that becomes a sanctuary city for illegal immigration, they will forfeit any state funding that they receive in this year's budget. And in addition to that, if they adopt a sanctuary policy after the money has already gone out, we have to claw it back, and they have to give it back to us plus interest. And so that's what it does.
So I think this is the value of having a conservative Republican majority. We too are concerned about the flood. By some estimates, 8 million people have come into the United States. We have no idea who they are. We don't know about their background. And we're not interested in having them locate in one of our cities and maybe increase crime and all kinds of really negative effects. So I really appreciate that you all took that on. I want to thank you for being on the show today. I want to thank you for watching Hard Truth with Cindy O'Loughlin.